So timpani etude. This is the first time that we have done a region band timpani etude in 3 years. It has always been the case that we do snare drum, 2 mallet, and timpani, and for the last 2 years, 2 years, we have not been doing a timpani etude. That has to do with people being at home, not being on campus, and most percussionists don't have timpani in their house. But they have added it back in, which is good, because the high school has not stopped doing a timpani etude. So like all my freshmen right now are learning their first ever timpani etude because they never got to do one in junior high or middle school. So setting up the timpani, first of all, we're using the biggest 3 drums, so the 32, the 29, and the 26. That's not always the case when you have 3 pitches. It's just for these 3 notes on the page. If it were higher notes, we might have to use 3 different drums. But for this piece specifically, we are using the 3 biggest drums, so not using the 23. So the top and bottom notes are both Fs. So those should be tuned like an octave. They should sound like the same note, just an octave apart, like you would play on like 2 Fs on a marimba. So when you play them together, it should sound like an octave would on a marimba. Dee, do, same note. And then the C is right in the middle. If you can think a major chord, do, mi, so, do, bum, 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 bum. This is like a major chord with that 3rd missing. Make sure you don't set the timpani up in too much of a curve, especially when you're only dealing with 3 drums. A lot of people tend to set the drums up with the outside drums too far behind them. You don't want to have to rotate your hips, and you don't want to have to pull your arms back. What you want is for when you change drums to just naturally have that arm motion take you to the playing spot of the next drum. So I'm going to slide that one out a little bit. So this would be an example of what I would call setting the instrument up to match you rather than adjusting your style of playing to the instrument. All right? Always set the instrument up in a way that's going to make it easier for you to play the instrument. The biggest example of this would be drum set. You don't just walk down or sit down at the drum set and start playing. You have to make some adjustments because everybody's body is different. So now I've got them set up to when I move from one drum to the next, I'm just kind of like lightly pivoting, and my hands are staying in the correct spot on each drum, which on timpani is about 1/3 of the way from the edge to the center. So this is the center and this is the edge. I'm going to play about 1/3 of the way in, right here. And you'll notice when you play on the heads that is the sound that gives you the most tone, the most pitch. If I play too close to the edge, you get a real high overtone sound. Sounds like you're playing at the edge of a snare drum. If you play in the center, it sounds very dead and you don't even hear the pitch necessarily. That has to do with the shape of the bowl. Right? You're trying to shoot the drum, shoot the air down across the bowl and then up the other side. So think of it like a skateboarder. We're trying to do this with the air. So if I hit it in the center, it just goes right in the middle and stops. But if I hit it over here, that air kind of scoops through the bowl and it gets the whole thing ringing. So 1/3 of the way in is the best place to hit it. And that's the same on all 3 drums. Of course, as you go to a bigger drum, that 1/3 distance is actually a little bit bigger. So on the lower drum, you might notice yourself being slightly farther in, but the key is your ear. Okay? Find the spot that sounds the best with your ear. Okay? Where does the drum ring the best? Right? Rhythmically, this piece is super simple. There's no tuning changes. There's a handful of crossovers, but it's a lot of the same techniques over and over again. And once you get those 2 or 3 techniques done, or get them down, then everything else is pretty simple. We're not going to worry about dampening for right now, except at the very end. So I'm going to go through this one pretty quick. We're going to do it all in one video. I'm going at 75 right now. So let's just count a little bit. Now, I'm not going to break this down for you, but there's some dotted quarter rest, 1/8 rest, some upbeats that you should be able to do. This is all stuff that's in the beginner book, but you might need to practice a little bit. So let's just count. 2, ready, and go. 1 take, 2 take, 3 t take to 4 t take to 2 t take to 4. 1 t take, 2 t take, 4 t take, 1 t take, 3 take, 1 t take, 2 take, take 1 take, 2 t take, take, 1 take, 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 1, take, 2, take, 3, take, 4, take, 1. And now I measure 12, or is it measure 10, I guess, measure 10 where it's marked piano. Okay, so this is not so much about the notes as it is about the rests. We have eighth rests, quarter rests, dotted quarter rests, and you're going to have to distinguish between those three. This cannot be just about the notes. You have to measure the spaces in between you play, in between the times that you play, because it changes constantly. Okay, you need to know where every downbeat is. So one thing I would recommend you do, we're not going to worry about sticking. We're going to deaden the drum here. We're going to play the rhythms as we count all 4 beats, one measure at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just saying 1, 2, 3, 4 while I lightly play the rhythm that's written. Again and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next measure. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next measure 2. This one's easier. Count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is giving me a better idea of where all the rests are and how long they are, because I'm having to measure them out, having to find all the downbeats. Measure 4. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 2 eighth notes are on the beat. That's important because they're not always. Measure 5. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Those 2 eighth notes are not starting on the downbeat. They're starting on te of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So there's 2 empty beats in that measure. Measure 6. 2. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. So we have an eighth rest there. Some of you are going to want to stop for way too long. 1, 2. And this is why we're doing the numbers. Measure 7, 2. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Measure 8. Very similar, but it's got a downbeat. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay? So give yourself some time, practice that, be able to count the numbers and tap out the rhythm. First measure, talk about stickings. There's really no dynamics here. We're going to call this forte, mezzo forte, just a nice big full sound. So we're going to go right, right, left, left. Okay. We want to avoid crossovers whenever possible. Now, we're about to get to a point where crossovers are going to happen. But for these first 2 beats, we don't need to. And they're nice and slow, so we're just going to go double, double. So 2 rights, 2 rights, 2 lefts. Now, measure the 3rd and 4th beat are 3 teta, 4 teta, where the right hand is crossing over and playing 3 te, 4 te, and in between 3 teta, 4 teta. So we're going to hold that left hand. We're going to do this a lot, so get good at it. Hold that left hand as low as it'll go. Practice your right hand first. Really feel like your arms move. It should not feel comfortable. It's not a small movement. It's not casual. It's a big move. Try to make those even to where you're not going, you know what I mean? You want to get the mallet over there quick and play the drum, not swing at it from way over here. So think boink, move fast, boink, move fast. See how I'm getting the mallet there quickly and then playing instead of this? The reason is I can't control that sound. I can't make it sound the same as my left. So it'll always sound a little bit even. But if I move my arm quickly, I can make them sound even. Okay? And then pretty much this whole next section is just a bunch of crossovers. Whenever you see those 16th notes, it's going to be right hand lead and it's going to be a crossover. So I'm going to play all the way through, basically up to measure 10, where the dynamic changes here. When I get to 9, it's going to be another double sticking. And whenever I have to double stroke one hand to the other, I always pick my strongest hand, so I'm choosing to do them on the right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right. Here we go. 1, beginning and ready and go. rhythm, and then we have that same that we had earlier, except that it's very soft. And this is where what I told you earlier about crossovers is really going to help you out. If you're just kind of slinging that right hand, that right arm around, you're not going to be able to play that rhythm softly as a crossover. Okay, the way I can play that and control it very softly is because, again, I'm moving my arm fast, getting it over there early, and then just being able to tap the drum. So in measure 13 there, we have a rest on 1, we play on 2, rest on 3, play on the te of 3, rest on 4. 1, 2, te, 4, 1. So, and again, that's suddenly fortissimo with a marcato accent. So those two notes are going to be the biggest two in the piece, probably. Here's 10, 2, ready, and go. If you look at this, and you think about it, there's really only one way to do this, and it's left hand lead. Okay? If I were to try to do this with natural sticking, I'm going to go half tempo at measure 14. So you see there, I'm moving up the drum while playing with the hand that's coming from behind. Okay? We call that a push. That's when you move to a drum and you play with the wrong hand. What we want is to move to the hand, move to the drum with the hand that is leading there. So if I do this left hand lead, then I'm going to move to this drum with my right hand and to this drum with my right hand. So these two measures are completely left hand lead. So just take a second and practice these rhythms with the opposite of what we normally would do. We normally go right, right, left, right, left, right, left. Now we're going to go left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, 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 left. Okay? Left hand. And then just get comfortable with that. And now a couple beats at a time, maybe. That's, if you can get those two beats, you can get the rest. So just practice those two by themselves until you're super comfortable with where the downbeat is. That's usually what happens in this section. This is another etude that my students have worked on several times before. So I've experienced this one, and I know that in this section, a lot of people lose track of the downbeat because it's on your left hand. So practice in short segments. And make sure you get used to that left hand being on the downbeat. This one's not a downbeat. So then we go to that measure eighth notes, and it's the same as before. I got a double stroke somewhere. I'm going to do it on my left hand. We now have measure 17, a whole note roll, and it's a very specific, very characteristic timpani specific thing. We've all heard this sound before. So there's like a big timpani hit and then the roll sneaks in beneath it. That's a forte piano roll. It's something that timpani players are asked to do a lot. It's a very dramatic sound effect. You hear it in all kinds of music. Anyway, the mistake most people make on this is they think they have to play the roll super fast right away. Okay, we have one fortissimo note, and then the rest of the roll is going to be piano before we crescendo. A lot of people will do this and just immediately start wailing on that piano roll. You don't have to do that because the instrument does the forte piano for you if you let it. See how it naturally gets soft? You don't have to bring the volume down. What you have to do is wait for the volume to come down to you. So what I'm going to try to do is hit that roll on one, give it a little space, and then sneak in with my crescendo, like this. And more dramatic that way. Listen again. Ready? roll lightning fast. What you need to do is roll faster as you get louder. So when I first start, after I hit the initial forte part, the fortissimo, my roll doesn't need to be super fast because the head's already vibrating. Okay? And then at the end of measure 18, that next one, bum, beam, bum, bum, right, right, left, left. Okay, just like the first measure. This forte piano roll starts with the left hand, by the way. So 19 and 20 is kind of like the inverse of 14 and 15. It's a right hand lead motion pattern. Okay, so moving on to T is good for us on this one because it goes to the left. So hack that one out. That was a lot easier than the other one. It's just right hand lead. And then at the end, watch what I do as I'm playing the last measure. So you notice when I got to the very last note, when I put my hands on these two drums, where that quarter rest is, it completely stopped all the sound. But I did one more thing over here, and that's when I played the last note, I dampened this bottom drum. Here's what happens if I don't do that. And that drum's still ringing a little bit. So, I'm going to dampen this one on beat 3 and then these two on beat 4. Yup, dampen, dampen. Like that. Okay? And to dampen, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing them out with just my index finger or something like that, whatever's comfortable for you. This works best for me. And then I'm touching the head kind of firmly. I'm trying to get it to stop vibrating right away. I'm touching it with my other 3 fingers. And I'm trying a little bit to kind of roll it on there because it makes a little less contact noise. You get a little less of that sound. You don't want to hit it. Remember, the goal is not to produce a sound, it's to stop a sound. So you want to do it in the way that makes the least sound possible. A lot of people will, like I learned to scrape across the head. We can't do that anymore because we have textured timpani heads and it makes too much noise. So I've learned to roll onto the head quickly to make it stop. Like that. Alright? So here's the whole etude, little under tempo.